The autumn wind swept through the quiet streets of Asheville, North Carolina, carrying with it the scent of pine and wood smoke. Emma Carter stood at her bedroom window, watching the golden leaves dance across the front yard of their small rental house. She was 8 years old, with curious green eyes and brown hair that always seemed to escape her ponytails, no matter how tightly her mother tied them. Behind her, on the worn carpet that had seen better days, lay Max, a 3-year-old golden retriever with a coat the color of honey and eyes that seemed to understand every word spoken in his presence. He had been Emma's constant companion since her father passed away 2 years ago, a silent guardian through the hardest chapter of their lives. Sarah Carter, Emma's mother, worked 2 jobs to keep their modest home. By day, she managed the checkout lanes at the local grocery store, and 3 evenings a week, she cleaned offices downtown. The lines around her eyes had deepened over the past 2 years, but her love for Emma never wavered. She did everything she could to make sure her daughter felt safe, loved, and as normal as possible despite their circumstances. Today was different, though. Today was Emma's birthday, and Sarah had been acting strange all morning. There was a nervousness in her movements, a hesitation in her smile that Emma couldn't quite understand. They had celebrated quietly over breakfast with homemade pancakes, Emma's favorite, and Sarah had given her a new set of colored pencils for her drawings. But there was something else, something her mother seemed both eager and reluctant to share. After lunch, Sarah called Emma into the living room. Max immediately perked up, following closely behind as he always did. The small space was filled with second-hand furniture that Sarah had lovingly restored, family photos covering the walls like a timeline of happier days. On the coffee table sat an object covered with an old bedsheet. "Sweetheart, I have something else for you," Sarah said softly, her voice carrying an emotion Emma couldn't identify. "It's from your father." Emma's heart skipped. She hadn't heard those words in so long. Her father, James Carter, had been a carpenter, a man who could build anything with his hands and who had filled their home with laughter. His sudden heart attack had shattered their world, leaving behind questions, grief, and a mountain of medical debt that still haunted them. "From Dad?" Emma whispered, moving closer. Max stood beside her, his tail wagging slowly as if sensing the importance of the moment. Sarah nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. "Before he died, your father was working on something. He made me promise not to give it to you until your 8th birthday. He said you'd be old enough to understand then." With trembling hands, Sarah pulled away the bedsheet. Beneath it sat an old wooden box, roughly 2 feet long and a foot wide. It wasn't fancy or polished like something from a store. The wood was weathered and scarred, with visible nail marks and uneven edges. It looked like something rescued from a garage sale or pulled from someone's attic. There was no lock, just a simple latch that had rusted slightly with time. Emma stared at it, disappointment and confusion washing over her young face. She had imagined so many things, letters maybe, or photographs, or one of the beautiful wooden toys her father used to make. But this was just an old, ugly box that looked like it might fall apart if she touched it. "That's it?" The words escaped before she could stop them, and immediately she saw the hurt flash across her mother's face. Sarah took a deep breath, composing herself. "Your father spent weeks on this, honey. He said it was the most important thing he'd ever made. He told me that when you opened it, you'd understand everything." Max had moved closer to the box now, his nose twitching with interest. He began to sniff around it, circling slowly, his behavior shifting from casual curiosity to intense focus. Something about the box had captured his attention in a way Emma had rarely seen. "Can I open it?" Emma asked, her disappointment giving way to cautious curiosity. "Of course, sweetheart. It's yours." Emma knelt beside the coffee table, Max pressing against her side. She reached out and touched the rough wood, feeling the grooves and imperfections beneath her fingers. Her father had touched this same wood, had built this with his own hands during those final weeks of his life. That thought alone made it precious, regardless of how it looked. She unlatched the simple closure and slowly lifted the lid. The hinges creaked softly, breaking the silence of the room. Inside, the box was lined with old newspaper from 2 years ago, yellowed and fragile. And there, nestled in the center, lay another, smaller box, equally old and worn. But before Emma could reach for it, Max suddenly barked, loud and urgent, startling both Emma and Sarah. His paws were on the coffee table now, his nose pushing insistently against the side of the outer box, pawing at something neither of them had noticed. Max, no. Sarah moved to pull the dog back, but Emma noticed something that made her pause. Max wasn't being destructive or playful. His behavior was deliberate, focused. He was trying to show them something. Mom, wait, look at him. He's trying to tell us something. Emma ran her hand along the interior side of the box where Max had been pawing. Her small fingers found what felt like a seam, a separation in the wood that shouldn't be there. She pressed gently, and a hidden panel popped open with a soft click. Inside the secret compartment lay a sealed envelope, aged and slightly bent. Emma's name was written across it in her father's unmistakable handwriting, the letters careful and precise, just like everything he had ever created. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, tears streaming freely now. I didn't know. Emma, I swear I didn't know that was there. Your father never told me. With shaking hands, Emma pulled out the envelope and carefully tore it open. Inside was a letter, written on lined paper that had been folded multiple times. She began to read aloud, her voice small and uncertain at first, then growing stronger as her father's words reached across time to embrace her. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've just turned 8 years old. I'm so sorry I won't be there to see the amazing person I know you're becoming. I'm writing this from my hospital bed, and the doctors have told me things I don't want to accept, but I have to be realistic now. Emma's voice cracked, but she continued. This box probably looks like junk to you right now, and I don't blame you for thinking that. But here's the truth, sweetheart. This box represents every mistake I made, every shortcut I took, every time I chose the easy way instead of the right way. I built it from scraps I found, from broken things I never fixed properly, from projects I abandoned halfway through. Sarah was sobbing quietly now, but Emma kept reading, needing to hear every word. But inside this broken, imperfect box, I put something perfect. Something that represents what I should have been doing all along. The smaller box inside, that one I built with all my skill, all my love, all my attention. That's the real gift. But I needed you to see the difference, Emma. I needed you to understand that sometimes the outside doesn't matter. Sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most broken places. The letter continued with instructions that made Emma's heart race. Now here's the important part, and this is where Max comes in. I trained him for this, sweetheart. I spent hours teaching him to find hidden things, to sense what others can't see. That box has more secrets, and Max knows where they are. Trust him. Let him show you. And Emma, whatever you find, please help your mother. I failed her in so many ways, but maybe I can still fix one thing. Emma looked up at her mother, then at Max, who was watching her with those intelligent, knowing eyes. Emma set the letter down carefully on the coffee table, her mind racing with questions. Max immediately moved back toward the box, his nose working overtime as he sniffed every corner, every edge, every surface. His tail was wagging now, not with playful energy but with purpose, as if he had been waiting 2 long years for this exact moment. Show me, boy. Show me what Dad taught you. Max circled the box 3 times, then stopped at the back corner. He sat down and barked once, sharp and clear. Emma crawled around the table to where he was positioned. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just more weathered wood and old construction. But then Max pawed at a specific spot, and Emma noticed a tiny groove, barely visible unless you knew exactly where to look. She pressed her fingernail into the groove and felt something give way. Another panel, this one smaller than the first, slid aside to reveal a tarnished brass key taped to the inside of the compartment. Emma pulled it free, her hands trembling with excitement and confusion. What does it open? Sarah asked, leaning forward, her tears momentarily forgotten in the wake of this mystery. Emma examined the smaller box still sitting in the center of the larger one. Unlike its rough exterior container, this inner box was beautifully crafted, with smooth corners and intricate joints that showed her father's true skill. And there, on the front, was a small keyhole she hadn't noticed before. She inserted the key with a soft click and turned it. The lock released, and she lifted the lid of the inner box. Inside, nestled in velvet cloth that her father must have salvaged from somewhere, were stacks of envelopes, dozens of them, each marked with a date and a dollar amount. Sarah gasped, reaching out with trembling fingers to touch the top envelope. She opened it, and inside were 20 crisp $50 bills. "Oh my God. James, what did you do?" Emma grabbed another envelope, then another. Each one contained money, carefully saved and hidden. As they frantically opened envelope after envelope, a picture began to emerge. Her father had been setting aside cash for months before he died. Money from side jobs, from selling tools, from sacrifices they had never known about. "There's over $30,000 here," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking completely now. She collapsed onto the floor beside Emma, pulling her daughter into a fierce embrace. "He was trying to save us. Even when he was dying, he was trying to save us." Emma buried her face in her mother's shoulder, crying now too, not from sadness but from an overwhelming mixture of grief, love, and relief. Max pushed his way between them, licking away tears, his tail wagging with the satisfaction of a job finally completed. If you're watching this story and your heart is as full as ours right now, take a moment and subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next, what Max finds in his final search, will change everything you think you know about this family's story. For several minutes, Sarah and Emma simply held each other, the weight of 2 years of struggle finally lifting from their shoulders. The money represented more than financial relief. It represented her father's love reaching beyond death, his final act of protection for the family he had to leave behind. But Max wasn't finished. While they cried and held each other, he had returned to the larger box, sniffing insistently at the bottom. His pawing became more urgent, more demanding, until Emma finally pulled away from her mother and looked at him. "There's more?" She crawled back over, wiping her eyes. "Max, what else is there?" The dog barked twice this time, a pattern Emma recognized. It was the same bark he used when he found her toys hidden around the house during their games. She reached into the larger box and felt along the bottom surface. Her fingers found a slight elevation, a piece that didn't quite match the rest. She pressed down hard, and the entire bottom panel shifted. It wasn't the actual bottom at all, but a false floor. Beneath it was a space about 2 inches deep, and inside that space lay a large manila envelope, sealed with tape that had yellowed with age. Emma pulled it out and opened it carefully. Inside were official-looking documents, letters from lawyers, and a handwritten note clipped to the front in her father's writing. This one was addressed to Sarah. Her mother took it with shaking hands and began to read silently, her eyes moving rapidly across the page. As she read, her expression changed from confusion to shock to something that looked almost like anger. "What is it, Mom?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Your father had a life insurance policy. A big one. $500,000. Emma didn't fully understand the number, but she understood her mother's reaction. "Then why are we struggling? Why have we been living like this?" "Because I never knew about it," Sarah said, her voice gaining strength now, anger mixing with grief. "He took it out 6 months before he died and never told me. The beneficiary documents are here, everything signed and notarized. But I never received anything because I didn't know to file a claim." She shuffled through the papers, finding letters from the insurance company marked return to sender, addressed to their old apartment, the one they'd had to leave after James died because they couldn't afford the rent. The mail had never been forwarded. The insurance company had tried to reach them, but the letters had gone into a void, lost in the chaos of their grief and displacement. "There's a phone number here," Sarah said, her hands steadying now, determination replacing shock. "And a claim number. Emma, this says the policy is still active. There's no expiration on death benefits." For the first time in 2 years, Sarah Carter smiled with real hope. Her husband had built them a lifeline from beyond the grave, and Max, their faithful companion, had finally revealed it. The next morning, Sarah was on the phone before Emma even finished breakfast. She had barely slept, spending most of the night organizing the documents, rehearsing what she would say, afraid that somehow this miracle would evaporate if she didn't handle it perfectly. The insurance company representative listened to her story, asked for the policy number, and put her on hold. Those 3 minutes felt like hours. Emma sat at the kitchen table, Max's head resting on her lap, both of them watching Sarah pace back and forth across their small living room. "Mrs. Carter?" The voice returned. "I have your husband's file here. I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm even sorrier that you weren't notified properly. Our letters were returned, and we had no other contact information. The policy is indeed active, and you are the primary beneficiary." Sarah's knees buckled, and she sat down hard on the couch. "So it's real? The money is real?" "Yes, ma'am. $500,000. We'll need you to come into our Asheville office with the documents and proper identification. We can have a check issued within 10 business days." When Sarah hung up, she couldn't speak. She just opened her arms, and Emma ran into them, Max bounding around them both, sensing the shift in energy, the release of tension that had defined their home for so long. The following weeks transformed their lives in ways both dramatic and subtle. Sarah paid off every medical bill, every credit card, every loan that had been drowning them. She quit her evening cleaning job and reduced her hours at the grocery store. For the first time since James died, she was home for dinner every night. They moved out of the rental house into a small but comfortable home with a fenced backyard for Max. It wasn't extravagant, nothing that would draw attention or create new problems. Sarah was too wise for that. But it was theirs, truly theirs, with no landlord and no fear of eviction. Emma got new clothes that actually fit, books she had wanted, and art supplies that let her explore the talent her father had always encouraged. But more importantly, she got her mother back. The tired, stressed woman who had been running on empty was slowly being replaced by someone who could breathe again, who could laugh without it sounding forced, who could plan for tomorrow without fear. One afternoon, about a month after opening the box, Emma and her mother sat in their new backyard, watching Max chase butterflies through the grass. The autumn sun was warm on their faces, and for the first time in forever, everything felt peaceful. "Mom, why do you think Dad hid everything? Why didn't he just tell you?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking, "I think he was scared. Scared that I'd refuse the money. Scared that I'd be angry he spent it on insurance instead of treatments. Scared that I wouldn't understand. Your father always thought he had more time to explain things. He thought he'd be here to guide us through it. But he was here," Emma said softly. "He left us, Max." Sarah smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. He left us, Max." 3 years later, Emma Carter stood in the backyard of their home, now 11 years old and several inches taller. The small vegetable garden she had started had flourished into something her father would have been proud of. Tomatoes hung heavy on their vines, and sunflowers towered over the fence, their faces following the summer sun across the sky. Max was older now, his muzzle touched with gray, his movements a bit slower, but his eyes still held that same intelligent spark. He lay in his favorite spot under the oak tree, watching Emma with contentment. He had completed his mission, fulfilled the purpose James Carter had trained him for, and now he could simply be what he had always been, her best friend. Sarah had used the insurance money wisely. Beyond securing their immediate needs, she had invested in her own education, taking night classes in accounting. She now worked at a respected firm downtown, her natural skill with numbers finally given the opportunity to shine. The lines around her eyes remained, but they crinkled now with genuine smiles rather than stress. But perhaps the most important change was what they had created together. In James Carter's memory, Sarah had established a small foundation to help other families drowning in medical debt. It wasn't large or famous, but twice a year, they selected a family in crisis and paid off their bills, giving them the same chance at survival that James had given his own family. Emma had insisted on one condition. Every family they helped received a wooden box, handcrafted by local students at the woodworking program Sarah had funded at the community center. Inside each box was their check, along with a letter explaining James Carter's story and the message he had tried so hard to teach his daughter. that broken things can hold beautiful secrets, and that love finds a way to survive even the darkest times. On this particular afternoon, Emma was working on a drawing, her colored pencils spread across the patio table. She was sketching Max, trying to capture not just his appearance but the wisdom in his eyes, the loyalty that had changed everything. Her mother came outside carrying 2 glasses of lemonade, sitting down beside her. "That's beautiful, honey. I want to remember him exactly like this," Emma said, "just like Dad wanted us to remember him. Not perfect, but full of love." Max lifted his head, as if he knew they were talking about him, and his tail thumped twice against the grass. In that moment, Emma understood her father's final lesson completely. He hadn't left them a perfect inheritance or a flawless plan. He had left them something real, something that required work and faith and trust. He had left them hope hidden inside imperfection. And he had left them Max, the faithful companion who had kept his secret for 2 years, waiting for exactly the right moment to reveal that love never truly dies. It just transforms, finding new ways to protect the ones we leave behind. Thank you so much for watching this story until the very end. If it touched your heart like it touched ours, please hit that like button and leave a comment telling us what you felt. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our next emotional journey. And if you have a story suggestion or a theme you'd like us to explore, write it in the comments below. Your stories matter and we're here to tell them. Until next time, remember, the greatest gifts often come in the most unexpected packages.